Hello there, welcome to Holy Moonlight Crusaders. I am Pastor J. Dylan Proctor, and I've got a special guest with me today.
Hey, it's me. I'm back, guys. This is Timothy Shelton with the Front Porch. But most of you already know me by now.
You know, Timothy, we really need to come up with a clever name for you. Whenever I go over to your shop, it does make me feel like I am some auxiliary guest in like a television show, like Star Trek. And like, I'm just one of those guys who's there in a few episodes, but I like step in there and there's Captain Kirk up there on the bridge. That's kind of where I see you at. I don't know if you need like some sort of captain's title or something like that.
Oh, that's great. When we get off tonight, I'll send you what my actual nickname, my road name with our club is, and you'll have a good laugh about that.
Yeah. Well, aside from introductions and everything, we're going to be playing Spongebob Squarepants, The Battle of Bikini Bottom, Rehydrated. And I actually didn't even know that this game had been remade till yesterday. I was over at Timothy's shop with him. We were working on a really cool game. It's kind of like an analog arcade game, even though it's not an arcade game at all, but you put your coin in there, you can play what's essentially foosball. We were working on that machine, and he was talking about how this game had been remade.
Hang on. I want to get a photo for my scrap.
And everybody holds still.
Hello? What do you think you're doing?
I don't know, it just seems like a weird time for them to actually, like, remake the game, too.
It does seem like a weird time for them to remake the game.
Because it's not 20 years old, you know?
No,
it's like 2023.
Yeah. It's not like an anniversary or something like that. Or really a hallmark for the SpongeBob franchise, which we're going to get to the whole them coming out with SpongeBob in Pride Month. I do want to talk about that. That's one of the reasons I got this game. A template to talk about some culture war issues, but we'll get to those in a moment. But just introducing the game, I didn't realize this till yesterday. I was getting some thoughts prepared on this game. SpongeBob's art design has changed a little bit over the course of the series. Instead of him being more of a long sponge, he's become more of a shorter, squarer sponge.
And if you actually go back and compare the first season to today, he actually has more holes.
Really?
Comparably.
I knew he had like the trademark holes that are on like the front of him. I don't know about the beyond
if you
that.
Go and I think they were talking about there's a 3D modeling program you can get.
Yeah.
And if you load the original SpongeBob into it, he's got like 113 holes. But if you load the modern SpongeBob, he's got like 280.
Wow.
So, okay is a magic wishing word?
Well, you know, it's one of the things also, too, which, again, I'm not a big deal in graphics. It looks better than the original game, but not by that much. Like, the original game was still very playable.
I mean, the original game was such... I mean, we gotta go back to 2003 here. But, like, it was ahead of its time as a 3D
it's kind
Persona game.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 3D platformer. I mean, it's SpongeBob. And, you know, a lot of video games that are based on other franchises that aren't video games don't translate well into games. But the Battle of Bikini Bottom was actually a really good game. It wasn't some cheap, just thrown together really quick, you know, cash grab. It actually was a really good game.
That's kind of like you talking about cheap games. Like I said, I'm a Scooby-Doo nerd fanatic.
Yeah.
I've got literally 3 4-foot tall Scooby-Doos.
Oh, dang.
The video games for
it
Scooby-Doo
sure looks like we're in a
that came out on
doozy
the
of a
Game Boy
pickle.
Advance was
I think I'm gonna have to learn a
so
lot in order to
much
fix
crap,
this
like-
mess.
they're playable now, but you look back and think, like, you had all this power to make a cool video game, and you made this.
You know, I had one of the Scooby-Doo games for Game Boy Advance. I don't remember what it was called, and I'm trying to adjust some camera settings, and it's going crazy. The only thing I really remember about it is it had like an airplane level.
Yep.
Maybe it was Mystery Mayhem. Was that a Scooby-Doo game?
Yes.
Was that for the Game Boy Advance, or did I just make that up? I feel like that's
I
what it
don't
was
know
called.
if that. I think that one was actually for the PS2. The one that everyone plays is the Spooky Island one. That was kind of made off of the original movie.
Oh man, I bet that was not good.
I mean, it wasn't for just a standalone video game. It wasn't a bad game.
Yeah. Well, what did
But
you think
for
about the movie?
Oh, see, I love the movies. I think they were so well done when they did them.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking years of planning they put into the movies. But then you've got, like, don't even get me started on some of the newer series. I mean, it's kind of went down. I mean, I became a fan in childhood watching the 1960s series, you know?
Yeah.
The original Scooby-Doo.
Which is yet to be beat.
No, but I also grew up and started watching a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Okay, yeah, I totally remember all that stuff.
Scooby-Doo Kids, and like we watched all this, and like I still think it'd be a dream of mine to own a Scooby-Doo mystery machine and drive it. Like, but it's like
Oh, pants.
we go back to when you start looking at like their video game franchise for Scooby-Doo. None of the games was really made that well. Like, they could never really go back and reincarnate them nowadays and reimagine them without completely reworking the system.
Yeah.
Like, Spooky Island had so many glitches in it on Game Boy Advance that you could beat the game pretty easy.
Oh, man. Well, you know, one of the things that happened with Scooby-Doo, I believe it was the early, maybe mid-90s, they had an actual shift. They came out with a couple of Scooby-Doo movies, like... There was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. There was one that had like a witch rock concert. I think there were three movies in this. And the Mystery Machine was updated. Their wardrobe was updated a little bit. The art style and even the style of the animation, how it was done, was a little bit more updated.
So Zombie Island, since you touched on Zombie Island, we can get in depth into Zombie Island. That movie is the most premier and the best movie in the franchise history, even to date.
I could agree with that. I remember one guy's name was Jacques in it. But you know, they took a big shift from the Scooby-Doo formula in the sense that rather than it being a person behind a mask, it was actually real zombies.
I was about to say, that was what made it such a different thing. It was the first movie or series to ever have a villain or monster in it that wasn't an actual person.
Yeah, and I don't. There were others that I feel like one of them was kind of based on the Salem witches, maybe.
Yep.
But I don't remember.
So that one, like, you're bringing back childhood. I still watch these today. You can actually, I don't know if you remember on the Game Boy Advance, you could actually buy cartridges with videos loaded.
Yes, they were white or gray.
Yep. They were like this white, grayish looking color.
Yeah.
Like that was my childhood. I watched them all the time. I still have one for SpongeBob and Rocket Power that I watch.
Yeah.
But like, there's something about the Salem Witch one because, like, they came in and the Hex Girls was there playing, and they all thought they were witches and stuff. Trying to find out it was their own townspeople with a boom lift doing all this.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Forgot about that.
And see, like, Scooby-Doo and the Mummy, that was a good one.
I don't know that I saw that one. Was it of that same era?
No, it was actually before. So, like, Zombie Island and the Salem Witch Hunts came out in, like, 03, 02 era.
Yeah.
The Mummy probably came out in, like, 98 era.
Okay.
So, like, that was kind of, like, newer. That was, the Zombie Islands is kind of the newer ones. But, like, at one time, I had the entire VHS collection.
Okay.
Now, over the years, I have watched some of the tapes so much I have broke them, and I'm now got them on a wanted list trying to find them.
Oh man.
But it's
I like how we started off playing SpongeBob, which is probably one of the most iconic I would say SpongeBob is the most iconic cartoon of the last, well, since it came out in 1998.
It came out in 98. And see, that was what someone else brought up about Scooby-Doo, you know? Someone tried to argue that SpongeBob was less iconic than Scooby-Doo. I was like, to a degree. We're talking Scooby-Doo has grown up over what? Almost 6 generations
Yeah,
now?
he's almost 60 years old.
I mean, he was born in like 1967 or something
Yeah, I think
like that.
67 is
Like-
the same year.
Like, I mean, that's crazy to think about nowadays, you know? It's almost as old
Oh, yeah.
as my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Like, but we're talking, the Scooby-Doo they knew then is not the Scooby-Doo we have now.
Yeah.
Where SpongeBob has kind of stayed on the same visual track since 1998. I mean, almost 22 years ago.
Which, for better or for worse, I do think the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob are peak SpongeBob. And you can tell the art style changes a little bit. They get some characters which look more like Fairly Odd Parents in there.
I liked when, like, I don't know if you remember that episode where Sandy was so depressed about being homesick.
Yes, and they turned the Krusty Krab into Texas.
Yeah.
They're like, don't, and she's over there beating up Patrick. Don't mess with Texas. She's chasing him
Yeah.
across. Like I don't know how long it's been since I've seen these episodes, but so much of SpongeBob is grained deep within the brain.
And see, that's what you could just start describing the episode to somebody. Like, they may have only watched a season or 2, but they remember that episode from
Yeah,
that
they
season.
do.
And it's just weird to think of that concept nowadays. Like,
Yeah.
we have so much going on in the world, and we could talk 6 hours on that crap, but we go
let-
back to SpongeBob, and it seems like hope. Does that make? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
to
Well,
you.
let's talk about the elephant in the room. The whole deal with them coming out with the rainbow picture on Twitter, making this case that SpongeBob is gay. So a couple of things on this. First of all, cartoons should not have sexuality. If people are
I agree.
sexualizing cartoons, they need to be in jail. That is the nicest thing that needs to be done to somebody, is they need to be in jail, and probably more if they're sexualizing cartoons. All right, number 2, beyond that, I you know, if you would have showed me some of the other older episodes, when I would have said, okay, maybe he is a little strange, but not really.
I mean, you don't think of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, let me also say, I don't buy into the notion that we should call a group of people gay. That we should define I don't think, as a Christian, I'm convicted not to look at people as people groups. The Holy Scriptures say people are not people groups. You find your identity in Christ. But we live. One of the things that's unique is people have tried to act like there is a people group, the LGBTQ, insert more letters here, is a people group. That is a behavior. That is not a people group. That's not something which has its own tribe and lineage, its own culture that has existed and things like that. It is not a people group. That is an action. And to define people based on a behavior is, first of all, that is a very dangerous thing to do. So I reject that full sale. You can't have any intelligent conversations if you're lumping people based on a interest in saying that's their identity. I think one of the ways that our culture has gotten really devolved is we have emphasized identity, and which is nonsensical to emphasize the notion of identity anyway, but then we've emphasized really crappy versions of identity as well. So let me get to my thoughts on the whole Nickelodeon thing. I actually think the fact that in Pride Month they sent out a little tweet with a rainbow filter, rainbow colors, whatever, I actually think that is evidence, rather than that being them saying SpongeBob is gay. I actually think it's a disingenuous bowing to the great power of what I'm going to call the Rainbow Jihad. And the Rainbow Jihad being the political movement that seeks, it's also very Marxist, very socialistic, but it seeks to force, not just to coexist. The whole coexist notion is not it's a lie. But to force compliance and force people to bow down to something like homosexuality. But my thing is the Rainbow Jihad, the political movement associated with that, shows no restraint at all. I mean, you'll see people in like leather acting like a dog crawling around at like a rally. Like this is not a movement known for restraint. And the reason why I bring that up is if SpongeBob were actually sexualized, which would be stupid, but say he was, and say he was gay as they operate in their thinking, they would have worked that into the show so much. That would not be something that comes out in a Pride Month when they're demanding companies do this or else get burned to the ground.
Yeah, 22 years later.
Yeah, that's not going to happen 22 years later in an environment where they're basically saying, we will destroy you, we will dox you, we will end you unless you do this. And again, it was very actually subtle what they did. It was just enough to appease. It was just enough bowing down to Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue to get Nebuchadnezzar to leave you alone for a little while. It wasn't... Now, that's not to say that they won't do something else in the future, but what has happened so far, I actually think might be evidence to the contrary. So that's my thoughts on it. I'll let you respond to that if you want.
I guess... Oh, well, we talked about it before we started, but, like, I really have no real opinion on it, but I could care less, but, like, I'm kind of on you on that. I think they're just trying to get with the notion of they didn't want to be canceled.
Yes, I think that is exactly, yes, they didn't want to be canceled, so they did basically the minimum to not be canceled. It does not...
I mean, we live in a canceled... I know you don't watch YouTube.
Not much.
Like,
Now I can wear
we live in
4
a
pairs of
canceled
underwear.
culture.
Yeah, I am familiar with that
All I have to do
concept.
Like a spring
now
breeze.
is say something like he touched me, something wasn't right with him, and they're canceled. Like,
Yep.
one of my favorite YouTubers, and like a girl came out against him, and his ex came out against him too. But like he's already pushed these things away, and he's still getting a massive amount of hate. You know,
Yeah.
like there's no way he could have truly done this to these girls. But like, and I don't know. It's just to that point now where it's like cancel culture has taken over the world, and it's
sad.
crazy.
It is so crazy. Let's go to Jellyfish Fields. So, what system did you play this on when you were a kid? I thought I played it on PlayStation, but looking back at my memories, I actually think it was GameCube.
Mine was a PlayStation 2.
Yeah, you know, I thought I played this on the PS2, but I'm remembering, now that I'm actually playing it, like a lot of the controls are kind of coming back to me. It's weird when you go back and play games you haven't played in a long time, and you can kind of feel something. And it's like I literally am feeling the need for a GameCube controller in my hand.
Oh, did I tell you I found one of those at the pawn shop the other day?
A GameCube?
That's what was funny about it. It's literally the Nintendo Switch GameCube controller.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they have those.
And I bought it for $20 since I just had never seen it before.
Yeah, Is it corded or wired?
It's wireless.
Wireless. Okay, yeah, I've seen some that are corded. Who is it made by? Is it actually a
Squidward.
Nintendo?
Literally
Are you okay?
licensed by Nintendo.
Okay. So it's not some third party.
No, that's
Well,
not...
I mean, it's officially licensed regardless. It's not some unlicensed knockoff.
yeah, like, so...
No, I'm not.
Well,
Like, of
your
course you're
nose
old
does
enough
look pretty
to
big. I mean, bigger than
remember
usual,
that
but
back
that's
in
usually
the
pretty
PS2
big.
days.
Always been bald.
Seemed like
Well,
every
according to the
person
Jellyfisher field,
Well, I guess
that
you're
had
off
a
the...
little company was
With it.
making...
Their own version of the PS2 controller.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them were okay and some of them were bad. We had a Mad Catz controller.
Mad Catz is one of the biggest.
And I remember the buttons felt different. I can still feel those buttons on my fingers.
And it's been...
I bet I haven't...
15 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I can still feel it though. But yeah, just to kind of finalize the conversation on SpongeBob, it feels more like a disingenuous "don't cancel me" move. Because again, if they had really bought into that movement doesn't show restraint. They would have gone farther than that. So anyways.
And that's where, and Nickelodeon in general, like, I would say Nickelodeon has been one of those companies that has been so open about it, I guess. Like, they've openly had stars that's come out as 15,000 letters, whatever that is. And it's like, okay. And then they go and tweet just subtle about SpongeBob, you know?
Yeah, if it were real, it wouldn't be subtle, folks. This is not a movement known for subtlety.
I think they would have literally came out and had a whole big press conference and...
Yeah, they would have... Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite YouTubers is... I think she's bi, I think that's how she identifies, I don't know. But like, she's a great person and I still watch her. But, like, she even came out and kind of said something against us, kind of like, this seems like it's...
Fake?
Fake because of... Like, even she was just a YouTuber and she had a big old thing. Like she made a 13-minute video about it, you know? It's like...
Yeah. You know, maybe I should make videos that are specific on topics. I don't know. There's a lot going on. But, alright, so you want to talk about something completely different? Kind of related to your shop? Something I'm kind of curious about?
Okay, go for it.
I kind of wanted to talk to a little bit about the importance of entrepreneurial aspiration, and I've got two sides to that. Do you want the philosophical side or the kind of nitty-gritty side first?
Yeah, go with the nitty-gritty.
Alright, so this... How was it that you found yourself running your own business, and what kind of drove you to have the aspiration and desire to do that? And just tell me a little bit, how difficult was it to get to where you're at now? And, you know, if there are people out there who are listening and they're like, maybe I'd like to start a business, even if it's something like a food truck, which I know you're not in the restaurant business, but still, just the entrepreneurial spirit. So many people I know, they either feel like it's too overwhelming to truly have that spirit, or they just don't even know. It's just lost to them. So what are your thoughts on that? Where'd you really begin your great adventure of being the businessman that you are?
You'd actually have to go back to... Oh, God, this is terrifying to think about. You'd actually have to go back to my 10th birthday.
Okay.
And I can try to explain the story in a little lesser detail, but basically, my grandfather died. My birthday is on September 21st, and my world fell apart October 1st.
Yeah.
And that was the day my grandfather had died. And he ran a TV shop here in town for 52 years. And me growing up with TVs, knowing TVs, seeing TVs, I never learned anything from them because, you know, you don't know what you have till it's gone.
Yeah. And you're kind of going in and out as far as your volume is right now.
Oh, I'll go back off the speaker. I'm outside now.
Oh.
Actually was staring at my old TV shop.
Oh, okay.
And being depressed that I wasn't able to I was 10 years old and wanted to take over the business then, you know.
Wow. So that's a very earlier entrepreneurial. Yeah, at 10 years old, you're feeling that drive, that impulse.
And like, I can be honest with you, like, my granddaddy pushed all 4 of his kids out of the TV business.
Really?
Yeah, he told them, hey, TVs are going to a disposable state. There ain't no need for you to get in this business. I'm probably going to be the last of a generation, you know?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a vicious pushing out. It's like, hey, realistically, this industry is changing. It's not going to exist in its current form much longer.
That's kind of where he was at. And I mean, in a sense, he was right, you know? But, like, I kind of went on with school, and at 15 years old, I was driving down the road with mom and dad, and at 15 years old, I told them both honestly that morning I'd pulled the permit with a business license to get Shelton's TV. And they're like, okay.
Wow.
And they were like, well, what do you really need to do? And I was like, I'm gonna fix TVs. Of course, Dad and Mom was both kind of apprehensive, like, there ain't no money to be made. And you know, there really wasn't. I mean, my first 2 years, I made less than $1,000 a year, you know? But I was doing something I loved. That granted, I didn't have bills at that time, so it wasn't really paying bills. But it was, I had a little spending money when it came time for that. And then right around my 17th birthday, you know, business kind of picked up some, you know? I was having more and more people contact me, and at this time I still didn't drive. They would literally come to my house. And so, like, I think 17 through about 20 years old, I pulled right at $2,300, $2,400 under the minimum needed to file taxes.
Yeah.
But, and about that time, I got into the e-waste recycling business too. People out there listening, do not get into the e-waste recycling business.
I remember you telling me that, which I can only imagine the regulatory headache that is.
The EPA comes down, like they came down and did site visits with me literally once every 3 months. Like,
oh my goodness.
So like it
makes me want to feel sick just listening to that.
So
Just
it was really a headache on my end. But like, when I look back on it, this all has really led me on the path. So like, fast forward a couple years, and I mean, I'm 20, now I am 26 years old. So this journey started coming to an end when I was 24, and at 24 years old, I just turned that in September of 2018, and I could see that, hey, there's no money to be made. I was driving to all these places to make $100, you know?
Yeah.
And now, on the flip side of that, I've gotten to work on some of the coolest and rarest model TVs in the world. But at what cost? It cost me $300 to go up there to make $150.
Yeah.
So, but like those years I still didn't file taxes. Like, one year I got close was like my 22nd birthday year.
Yeah.
Which would have been like 2016, roughly. Yeah. I made like $4,850. And it wasn't until last year I actually filed taxes because I had to, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, and I only made that because I sold a lot of the contents of my business.
Yeah.
But like, we were talking about it last year, and then it comes to last year, you know, I'd already had the entrepreneurship in me already.
Yeah.
And I decided at a very young age, like, I came out of the gate at 14 years old saying, I won't work for nobody. No man will ever hold me. And I have literally actually stayed true to that.
Yeah.
You know, there was a few times I went off and got jobs. Like, I worked at Amazon during like the 2017 to 2018 peak season.
Yeah.
And then, like, during the 2018-2019 season for Amazon, instead of going back to Amazon, which I should have, I went and worked at the Montgomery County Jail in the food services department. That was literally the worst times of my life.
Oh, I can't. Well, I mean, not to be rude, but those sound like high stress things anyway, as far as.
Like, it was.
I know Amazon has a reputation for being kind of demanding, and
like, I heard someone say that the other day. Like, literally, my job could have been done by a 5-year-old.
Oh, really?
Fresh like a spring.
I literally picked a package up off a conveyor belt, scanned it, and put it on the pallet where it went.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't hard, and that's what I told someone. It's like, it's had to be. I had one of the easiest jobs in the company, apparently.
Yeah. And now,
But like,
just to speed up the,
yeah,
well, I didn't realize you were going to Amazon. Now I feel like a jerk. Well, I was just saying, like, now you have come full circle to having a full shop, which, again, is an extremely cool shop, man. And maybe it's because you're very similar to me in that you like to tinker with all sorts of things. Like, you don't need somebody in the world to tell you something's cool. Like, you just go and be like, you know what, I'm interested in this weird, quirky thing, and I like it. I'm gonna go have fun with TVs. I like it. I'm gonna
and
collect.
that's where someone else asked. I don't know if it was on one of your videos or another podcast I did. They asked me if I had any formal training.
Yeah.
And no, I'm completely a self-taught guy.
Yeah.
Everything I know, I've self-taught.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually sitting on my front porch staring at 6. I don't know if you know what Bitcoin miners are.
Yes.
I literally just have 6 of those sitting on my front porch.
Which, I mean, Bitcoin is something. We should have a whole conversation on that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was dumb and why, but I mean, I just have 6 of them that I got them in trade, and I was like, you know, it's kind of cool. I took one apart. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but I mean, the resale value of one of them's nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, they go for like $100 on eBay, but like, we're talking things that weigh probably 40, 50 pounds, like.
Oh man.
So like,
Feel like a
they're
new
extremely hard to ship. To
Yeah.
start with. But
Well-
like,
Oh, sparkly.
fast forward to November when I actually bought the shop. So for the whole basically year of 2019, I was actually trying to buy a different shop at parts. It was called Red River Equipment. It was old John Harrison's shop. It was a tractor place.
Yep. I know where it is. I mean, I grew up farming cattle, all sorts of stuff, doing hay. I've been there.
I tried to buy Red River Equipment, and me and the lady who was processing the sale could never come to terms. And then it was actually kind of funny because like September got there and I was like, you know, I still don't know what to do. I'd closed down the shop at this time. I closed it in July.
Yeah.
And I still hadn't found out what I was going to do in September, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was doing odd jobs here and there to make some money, but not really needing enough a lot of cash still.
Yeah.
And then we got to talking the one night, and I had February of last year. I set up in the front porch as a vendor.
Yeah.
So
May I ask
October came.
what did you have? Were you selling anything that was TV or electronic related, or was it just?
Not when I moved to the front porch.
Yeah.
I sold collectibles and antiques.
Okay.
And I was always a reseller by heart,
I feel
Yeah.
like a new
and
sponge.
then moved into a different category. And I never made money really.
Yeah.
I can be honest there. Okay, but on the flip side of that, in October, the old owner of the front porch basically asked me, you know, I'm thinking about moving the shop, you know, and me and him, he wanted me to come in as a third partner. And what he was asking for was like 30 grand, and I couldn't just come up with that. But what he basically, and he wanted to set up a restaurant, a vendor's mall, and an auction house in the old Fred's, right across the street. Well, as you could tell, that never happened.
Yeah.
November 1st came, and he's like, well, I think this ain't gonna happen. I was like, hey, I don't think it will either. I can't get the funding. He's like, well, do you want first dibs on buying the business? And when that came to me, I mean, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, yeah, let me go home and pray for it. This is this is November 3rd, roughly. No, this is November 2nd. And I went home, prayed for it. The next morning, I talked to Dad about it. Because, like, no one give me money, you know. My credit history wasn't there, you know. I paid with everything in cash all my life. And
Yeah.
if I didn't have cash for it, I didn't buy it, you know. And so it was like, it went to a point where Dad's like, yeah, let's go to the bank and see if I can get the loan. Well, they gave him approval for the loan literally within a day. Like, 5 hours we had the loan.
That's crazy.
And I walked out of the bank knowing that I was getting the business and kind of had one of those moments with God, like, you knew this. I didn't have this thought in February, but you knew this was going to happen today, didn't you? And, you know, it was kind of one of those things that I ain't saying God had a plan there, but God had a plan from the get-go, knew that I was never going to buy Red River equipment, and would end up in the front porch owning it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me just to take over, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, it was a different because, like, I never had employees and I never had... There was a list of things that I never really had that I... Like, paying out people, you know? I never had that before.
Yeah.
So I needed a business account and stuff like that. And it was just weird, you know? And, like, I went through business management classes. Like, there was 3 semesters there I went to college. And found out quick college wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And it had come to fruition that, you know, I ain't bad at running a shop either, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can sell. Like you doing that video yesterday, you can see me. I'm so natural when it comes to talking about my shop. Selling the stuff and, like, I can get down on other people's levels
Yeah.
that normally can't comprehend
Wow!
what I'm
Mermaid
doing.
Man,
Does that make
I have
sense?
all your
Yeah, no, it
comics and
does.
toys and mail.
Yeah.
Like, and it just came to fruition that, you know,
What?
That
I
Patrick
love
is
what I
surrounded.
do. And
Well,
there's
if
actually a
massaging
song,
your
if you ever
feet
wanna
will
look it
save
up, it's called
Patrick.
Vacation by Dirty Tails.
Massaging your feet isn't working. I think I
And
better
that
try.
describes my life. I wake up every morning and I feel like I'm going on vacation because I love what I do.
Yeah.
I don't have regrets.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I had a problem with the people who works in factories and says, "Oh, I'm happy, I'm happy." But are you?
Yeah. Well, do you want to switch some gears and now talk a little bit of the philosophy that I was wanting to get into?
Yeah, go for it.
So last night over at the church, and I think anybody watching this, I know I introduced myself as Pastor J. Dylan Proctor, but I pastor a Nazarene church. And I love doing that. I never thought I would be a pastor. I figured I would be in ministry, but I thought missions was my future. Ended up pastoring a church. Long story short, last night we had a Nerf event at the church where we shoot Nerf guns all throughout the building and have fun. And I started talking with some of the guys that were there, really about universities and stuff like that. And one of the things that I said is, the university system in America has gotten in really bad shape, and including Christian universities. If you want to find the most debaucherous, sinful, unfaithful aspect pretty much of any denomination, go to their universities. It's really sad, but it's really true. Our universities are very sick. They need healing. They need to be restored to what God wants them to be, because right now they're not.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and
I always had that. Like, I'll say one on Trevecca, you know. I always saw Austin P growing up.
yeah,
Like, Austin P ain't really a party school, okay?
no,
But if you go off
But-
campus, yes, there's alcohol and drugs. But Trevecca, my sister went there almost 3 years, and she's like, you can't even imagine the kind of stuff that goes on campus.
it's
being
not
a
so
university.
much. Well, it's not so much that it's party. It's not like a party school, but just. And look, there are some good professors there. I'm not, but the whole mentality And Trevecca is not as bad as other places. Like, I'm not here to beat up on Trevecca explicitly, though. Trevecca does need to have some course correction. It needs to have some firm conviction in who it is and not be wishy-washy, because that's their main problem. Like, they don't need people in the religion department who are arrogant to the point that they've got the sentiment. Like, in Wesleyans, we ordain men and women, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, the biblical narrative says your sons and daughters will prophesy. Yes, they will. You can ordain women. But we have people now professors who will dock students' papers if they use male pronouns for God. Like, God said this, he revealed this, or using he, him for God, and that's stupid. If you have people in a religion department worried about that, bad things happen. Anyways, let me get back to the philosophy of entrepreneurship, because that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
One of the things that worries me is that for men, especially young men need to be working and doing things where they understand cause and effect relationships. One of the reasons why our universities have gotten like they are is people that are in the universities have forgotten that their thoughts can be wrong. And I taught this back when you look at the last few hundred years of church history, even going back about the time of the Reformation. The church started being comfortable splitting things off. You know, if you feel compassionate, work over there. If you feel like you like reason and truth, work over here. And we started separating stuff off. And with the Reformation, you got all kinds of splits and then denominational splits. And if you didn't like the way a church was running, you could split. And I know people might think, well, I'm not big into church stuff, or much less church politics or anything like that. So I can just it shapes everything we do in our world. So y'all just bear with me on this. So one of the things that happened is the people who worked with their hands, I don't know what it is, whether they're doing manual labor, whether they're just crafting something, whether they're making like a clock, or whether they're digging a hole in a field. The people that work with their hands got separated from the academies. And this has really happened in the 20th century.
Thanks, Patrick.
And the people who work in the universities have forgotten that their ideas can be wrong. Like, if you're working with your hands, say Timothy, who used to work on televisions, if you're working on old CRTs, if you make a mistake in CRTs, you get immediate feedback from that. In a lot of literal ways. Like, it can go wrong. You can ruin something. You can, if you make a mistake, the TV may not be repaired. You know, you can get electrocuted. If you make a mistake, if you make a misjudgment, you have to pay that price for that. And people who work with their hands know that. And especially for men, they need to be doing work, some area in life, where if you make a mistake, you pay for it. Like, yes, I'm a preacher, and I preach sermons, and I do a lot of stuff. But I also do things like 3D printing. And if you make a bad design, well, it sucks. If you try to print a design that's, you know, flawed in some way, it may malfunction. It may be overcomplicated. It may not be complicated enough. There's just a lot of ways that an idea seems right in your head, but it doesn't work in real life. You might think you know what the problem is, but when you try to fix it, it's not. We right now, our universities are largely run by people who don't have to pay a price if they make a mistake. Like what I said earlier, like the whole, and I think it's really arrogant that you know more about God than God does. You know more about God than God has revealed over the course of 2,000 years of Christianity beyond. Which, again, that doesn't mean that women are worth less than men if God uses male pronouns. That does not mean that at all. But the spirit of this age, the culture of our age, has taught people to see the world through those lenses. They think class warfare. They think, you know, somebody's behavior is now an identity group. And so it becomes a problem for you if you're thinking worldly rather than thinking biblically. But these professors who teach stuff like this, they don't pay a price if they're wrong. They don't get shocked. They don't have to deal with the fact that nobody wants to buy the thing they just made, because, I mean, they're basically getting paid, and they get anybody that would criticize them, they just give a bad grade, and, you know, they don't allow them to criticize them. So, Timothy, what are your thoughts on the fact that I don't think university is for everyone, and I definitely don't think it's of the utmost importance.
Well, I can be honest there. I've had a different outlook on school since 15 years old, I guess. I sat in classes that after they were all done, I'd either passed or failed. I told the teacher, I'll never use this in my life. And she sat down and tried to explain where, yes, oh, you'll use this. I'd like to go back to and talk to some of the teachers, you know, set them down, you know.
Yeah.
I've never had someone run up off the street and told me I need to find X in a math problem.
Yeah.
I've never had someone come off the street and basically says, hey, can you identify a cell for me real fast? You know,
Yeah.
like I got a microscope over here. I need this, you know.
Yeah. Which I'm not so much like my opposition isn't so much that as much as it is the worldview stuff that gets.
How many of these do I have to carry?
People are allowed to live in fantasy, the land of make-believe in today's time, more than they are in the land of reality. And one of the things that, with being an entrepreneur, you have to live within the world of causes and effects.
Oh, yeah.
If you make a mistake, you have to deal with it. You have to pay for it, and you have to move on.
And that's where I can give you a few figures. Like when I did go to school, and I loved certain classes. Like history was a huge one for me.
Yeah.
But I also liked my business-oriented classes too, like entrepreneurship. I took that in high school, you know. And then I
barnacle head!
I actually took
Watch
SEC
where you go!
called,
Down here!
basically, I
you
took
people!
home ec.
I
I really enjoyed that class. But like we learned when I went to college, I went into a business management class. And we learned kind of the process of different businesses. Like there's a take and reaction for every thing you do. Like, yes, I think it's a weird figure of like 80% of small businesses in the first 5 years shut down.
Yeah.
But it's that leap. If you never take the leap,
Yep.
if you just go on the figures, you'll never make it in life, you know?
Well, and a lot of things too is like, I mean, even in your life, you're not doing the same TV business you were, but now you're doing something else. And a lot of people who are entrepreneurial find themselves in that same boat where they may have had one business shut down, but now they're doing something else. So it's not the total end of the road, I guess is what I'm saying. People make shifts in life. Oh, did I lose you?
No, my sister was sending me a text message.
Oh, okay.
No.
But man, that new iPhone does sound good. It does have a good
really
microphone. On a
I mean,
unrelated note.
I think we go into a system now where, yes, like, I may not be doing the same business I thought I would be the rest of my life. But, like, I have a best friend that started literally 5 years ago and has built a business literally from the ground up to now he's making over $500,000 a year, you know?
Wow.
Out of a small, tiny business that no one ever thought would amount to anything, you know? And actually, he does the same thing you technically do as 3D print. So he got into a different side of the business where he reproduces car parts.
Okay.
And like, one of his coolest things that I think he can make is like NASCAR. There's certain pieces of NASCAR that can cost them $100,000 that does nothing on the race car, you know? It's kind of for transport, you know?
Yeah.
And like he makes this kind of like a rod end looking thing for race cars that can hold them together as they're being transported so the tires don't move.
Up we go!
And like he makes them and sells them for like $65 a piece, where the actual part that if you go to buy it out of like a catalog, and it's like there's only a few suppliers of it. It costs like $3,000, you know.
Yeah.
And he gets orders for them all the time. But he's also remanufacturing. He's into the process now of 3D printing hoods now.
Wow.
Like, I'm to that point in my life where I look at something like that and it's like, technology has come so far, and all because he had a vision 5 years ago that, hey, I'm just going to go out of my way, and he used his tax return to start the business.
Yeah.
He got $2,000 back and bought his first 2 printers, and from there just started working on it, you know?
Wow.
Kind of like most people in 3D printing. He took it on a different scale than a hobbyist, but he went on to print some cool things. Like, one time I had one, I've sent it back already. I had a full custom rifle stock he 3D printed for me.
Wow.
To prototype. And it was basically my gun would just sit down into it, and it was all plastic. It literally weighed like 1.3 pounds. And it was just so light, and it was lighter than the plastic stocks on the market for the gun.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and like I put 2,000 rounds through it on that stock, and it held up great, you know?
Yeah.
And I think he's now selling it for like $138.
Yeah, well,
So,
I mean,
like,
to the fact, and I know I mentioned this to someone at your shop, I think it was Caleb, I don't think it was you. You know, a lot of times with 3D printing, a lot of times people are like, oh, that's plastic, it can't be that heavy duty. A lot of times it has more to do with the shape of it than the material. I actually made a tool today, an adapter.
I saw that.
Yeah. To
I
change
thought it was cool.
to change the oil filter in my car, because I changed the oil the other day, but I didn't have a tool. And yeah, I had some other avenues I could have used, obviously, you know, non-3D printed tools to get that job done. But part of me was like, I just want to see.
If you could do it.
And like one of my neighbors posted like, hey, I had a thing if you wanted to borrow it. And I was like, yeah, but I just wanted to see. I wanted to know that I could 3D print something that could handle the pressure of a ratchet on something that's torqued down on an engine to get it on. And it wasn't even like a hard plastic. It wasn't like one of the nylons or some of the more serious plastics that are out there. Or I guess the nylon's not, but whatever. But yeah, anyways.
And like, we're back to him. Like, he's now going through the process of putting car panels.
Good word tells me you're looking for
as fiberglass, not even fiberglass, like
good thing
actual,
too.
like 3D.
That monster has been stinging all my good customers and their poop decks.
When you're going from like my hood on my Kia, that's actually what he's trying to replicate right now. We're talking I think it's a 39-pound hood roughly. You can get that down to a 10-pound hood. We're talking huge weight difference, you know?
Oh yeah.
And like he's had a wing. I want to buy it, but like for him, he's only got one prototype, and he won't make one unless you buy it. For obvious reasons, but he's got a 5.5-foot wing that he made for his car, and he's like, it cost me like $300 to print because it took so many layers.
Yeah.
And like he put a thin coat of Bondo over it.
Yeah.
And like the wing he had on there before weighed like 28.5 pounds, and this one that was completely 3D printed and just lightly bondoed really only weighs like 6 pounds.
Wow.
And it basically does the same downforce for him. I mean, I think we're going to get to a point where we can print like torsion bars and strut bars.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think so. I mean, I've got some ideas for like car suspension and stuff in my head. Oh, I'm getting some feedback. But to my point earlier,
Hello, Patrick.
you know, I don't know
I've
if it'll
got a
actually
job
work.
for you to do.
What I have in my head, it may actually be a bad idea. And you know that when you do something, and men really need this, and it really worries me
I
when
found
young
a golden
men
spatula, but
want to pursue, really, they want to go to the university and like become a university professor, which again, if you're a professor that still works, like generally speaking, the professors in the religion department that are currently pastoring, and I don't mean like, I hate to say this, I don't mean like just running a PowerPoint or teaching Sunday school or running some little auxiliary ministry, but actually senior pastoring a church where you've got the full stress and weight on your shoulders of that role. They tend to be a lot higher quality than those who don't. But again, the principle of it, it's not just that you have it, but the principle is, because even sometimes you get churches that are to the state where the pastor doesn't do anything with their hands. But whenever people get separated from cause and effect relationships in their life, they get to make bad ideas because, I mean, again, if all you do is preach from the pulpit, or you have, cushions around you to save you from paying the price for anything, it does get bad.
Oh yeah, and see, like, even on your side, okay?
Did you get the golden
Like,
spatula?
you have entrepreneurship because you started 3D printing. But, like, people don't understand, like, people see, like, me, I'll take me as an example. People look at just what I do every day. They don't see what goes behind the scenes.
No.
Like my sister, I'll be completely honest with your audience. My sister just sent me a text message she got that one of my bills are past due, and I totally forgot about it. So it's like, well, now I've got to go in tomorrow where it was going to be my day off because I wasn't going to go in, pull cash from my reserve, put it in the bank, and pay that bill,
Yeah.
It's like, some people don't think of that anymore.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to think about, but it's just, people don't think that,
Well,
as a business owner, I come home at night and I don't get to sit down and play a video game. I don't get to do hobbies.
nope.
I sit down and still work on paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this with you right now is because I'm going to have other stuff I've got to do for the church later. Which I do think it's bad whenever people get separated. When people want to go into the thinking class, I should say, and I hate to even call it that because I don't like to talk about class warfare, but people who don't want to do anything but kind of live within their own mind a little bit.
Yep.
And especially with, you see how our culture has really devolved. It has really regressed. And one of the ways that it has regressed so severely is a lot of people make assumptions. It's amazing. The same people who tell you that stereotyping is bad, they also tell you that you can't be colorblind and that you have to feel guilty about who you are based on your race or something like that. I mean, they literally tell you you can't stereotype because you have to stereotype. It basically is they just want you to do whatever they want you to do. It's not about anything honest, but about control and power. But what we see going on in our world is largely a fact of people, they don't realize that businesses do come with a lot of hard work. And especially for the small business. I do hate that so much of America, it's really hard to be a small business. Like with farming, it's really hard to be a small-time farmer and do that viably. There's so many I know you were talking about like the waste disposal or the e-waste disposal. Like there are so many.
Yeah.
If you're trying to just start something like that, there are so many regulations against you.
And like we were talking about it, and like small-time farmers, like I can give you an example. And John Key, which is a farmer here in town, Clarksville.
Yeah.
He's been farming for 60 years, but also worked a full-time job too.
Yep.
And it's like I have so much respect for that man that someone's asked me, do I see race? No. Like, yes, he is a black man, but I do not care.
Yeah,
I have respect because he grew something from the bottom that wasn't there to start with.
Yeah. If people would have left the race stuff alone, and look, there are people in the church who say, oh, well, you can't leave it alone. They're fools. They could have, if these people would have left stuff alone, I think mine and your generation would have it would have been totally forgotten, totally wiped out. But people wouldn't let stuff go.
And people
to quote C.S. Lewis, the worst tyrannies are the ones that are sincerely done for the good of their victims.
Oh yeah.
And by that he means people who think they're helping someone out can be the worst tyrants because they believe they're helping when they're not. But
And
I
see,
don't even.
that's like, even with what's going on today, I can go into a whole show on that.
Yeah.
But I think people's forgetting stuff. Like, they're like, well, he was shot, he was killed. Like, they're talking about George Floyd.
Yeah.
And like, please don't take this the wrong way. I think what happened to George Floyd was a horrible thing. Yes, the
I do
cops need
too.
to be persecuted.
I don't see
But-
any way that wasn't terrible what happened to George Floyd.
But I think on the flip side of that, they're like, well, they're only killing black men. No, if you go and look at every statistic in America from every police force,
Yep.
like, white men are still the highest majority that gets shot and killed.
That is true. Per incident,
like-
yes, that is true. And also, and this is why people who say they're interested in social justice, either they're liars or they're really bad at it, which I actually think is just all wolves in sheep's clothing Marxism. And there are people who legitimately think they're doing good, but they're being used, they're being played, and it's so sad. If somebody's out there is interested in that stuff, for your own good, you need to walk away from it, because the people that are leading the stuff that are Marxist, they will eat you. They'll pull the whole KGB. You know, I read a document from a letter from a KGB agent, and he said the maddest people, when we lined people up to kill them, the maddest people were always the university professors. They thought they would be in power after we came to power, but they knew too much, so we had to kill them. Anyways, back to this whole George Floyd thing. It was about George Floyd for about 5 minutes, and then it wasn't.
Then they started tearing down monuments.
Which is yeah, the scripture tells us you know something by its fruits. And people act like, well, we need social justice, we need these departments, we need these trainings, and we need diversity, we need to restrict what people can say, we need to change the name of products. People have been doing this stuff, cancel culture, for years now, and the fruits of it are not good. The fruits of it are destruction. And to the point of the crime statistics, so that's what all my masters and stuff is in. When you look at the self-reported crime data, in other words, somebody's a victim of a crime, and generally speaking, people don't call in the police if they're victims of non-violent crimes or non-felonious crimes. Usually, if you do something petty, nobody's calling to report that. But self-reported...
I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually ran a fireworks tent for almost 10 years too.
Wow.
But
No.
like if someone stole from me, if it was a 99% pack of firecrackers, 9 out of 10 times they just gave it back right then. I wouldn't call the police. Why am I gonna hurt someone for 99 cents?
Yeah.
But like, if you come in there and yes, it's a 99-cent thing of firecrackers, and well, I didn't do it, you didn't catch me, you can't prove it, I bought it at a different tent, then yes, I'm gonna call the police and get them involved, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
but to the point of the self-reported crime data, it lines up with the other arrest data, which means you can't explain the disparities of arrests purely by cops having prejudice, because if the same people who, again, are the ones picking up the phone and calling the police to report a crime, if that data looks, and in most places it's within the margin of error, maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit mess, but it's usually dead on accurate in most of the major cities, you can't say, well, then it's just the police system. There's got to be something else to explain what the things that are going on in America. But the people who are interested in this, and again, I hate to bring up stuff like abortion, but it's amazing they claim that lives matter. The #1 killer of like black babies is Planned Parenthood, and it's not even close. Not only have they killed more babies than were ever enslaved in America, but the rate that they kill babies to other non-black babies, there are a few things in this world that get me broke down and make me actually want to cry. But I was listening to a documentary on some abortion clinic. I forget his name, the guy that got convicted, and listening to him and how he would take children born alive and snip their necks to kill them, their spinal cord. And most of these were black babies that he was doing this to. If you cared about this stuff, you would be caring about that, but they never are. And even the incidents they only care about, like a George Floyd, it's only if they can use it to their advantage, only if they can use it for politics. And it's so obvious to so many people, and it's so sad, because
And like,
our nation deserves better than the heretical crap that we're having to deal with. It's so sad. Lord have mercy on us. We need the Holy Spirit.
I know you don't watch news or YouTube, so I know you haven't heard about this yet. But the Minneapolis City Council literally just voted to dismantle the police.
I knew they were talking about it. I didn't know how far it had gone. Well, you know,
they voted and got it in. It's going to the ballots in November, apparently. And like, this is getting so serious that if it gets voted in, 3 of the council people, okay, they don't want the police, but they literally want private security
for themselves. Yeah,
for themselves.
Yeah, I could have told you that without even
paying for 1.6 million a year for these 3 people.
Yeah, I could have told you that without ever knowing it, because that's how Marxism always looks. Security for me, but not for thee.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
To quote some scripture for you, in Daniel chapter 5, where Daniel is dealing with King Belshazzar. Belshazzar is basically a metaphor for our own generation, or the generation currently alive. So not just a, age generation, but everybody currently alive. Daniel comes to him and says, "You knew better than to try all this stuff. You knew what happened to your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar, or father Nebuchadnezzar, though he's actually his grandfather. But anyways, you knew what happened, and yet you pulled all this stuff anyway. You knew." But you know that every time this happens, they'll say, "Yeah, we'll defund the police. By the way, we still get to have guns. We still get to be armed. We do. You don't, but we do." And I love their whole argument that they say, well, if your desire for a police force comes from a point of privilege. No, it doesn't. It comes from being rational. What's amazing, G.K. Chesterton wrote about this in his book, Orthodoxy. He said, people in our modern day and age want to criticize the police as if they've never heard of burglars. And as if burglars are not real. Burglars are real. But a lot of this is spiritual in nature. This is a belief system in nature. This is people who have bought into an idolatrous belief system. Social justice is a religion. That's why it's in the religion departments at schools, including Christian universities, because it is a rival religion. It hates Christianity. It wants to replace it. And even though people may not realize this, they're going to be finding out soon enough. Timothy, have you seen the meme that's the guy in space, and he's got another guy in space that's like shooting his head behind him? And he's like, "It's all Ohio," and the other guy's like, "It always has been."
Yep.
What they're going to find out is people in a few years, if not sooner, are going to be looking like, oh, like social justice isn't actually about helping people. It's all wolf in sheep's clothing Marxism. And then somebody's going to be behind them saying, "Yep, always has been," and then shoot them KGB style, and that's it.
Did you get the gold?
Well, I'm back in the belief that we were talking about this just the other day. I think you were in the shop when we were talking about this. But like, yes, I'm a legal gun owner. I have several guns. But like the people who's, like, you watch California news, and I do all the time for no reason. But like, you sit there and watch California news, and they're talking how you have, 5 million people in a state saying, well, let's go to civil war, let's see who will win.
What are you waiting for, boy?
I'm not trying to be on this subject, but like, one side has 350 million guns, and the other one can't figure out which bathroom to use.
Yeah.
I mean...
But I tell you what, the sad thing that really irritates me is the side that has the guns are much like Daniel in Daniel chapter 6, where King Darius is forced to throw Daniel in the lion's den against Darius's will. And somehow those who have the will and power to do something have been neutered to the point where they won't. And therefore they go along with stuff that they shouldn't be going along with. And part of it has to do with people that do have eyes to see clearly and aren't sold into this stuff. Most of them are like you. They're working. They don't have a lot of free time. They've got a lot of responsibility, so they're not going to go to like Minneapolis to stand up to these rioters, because the people that are rioting, and again, there's a big difference between people getting upset over a death and turning over a police car and lighting it on fire, and people who are laying down a pallet of bricks. When I saw the pallets of bricks being laid down, that is organized. That's not an angry impulse. That's something that was planned in advance and was waiting for an excuse to happen.
Hold on 1 second. Put that back.
Well, anyways, we got to wrap this up anyway. We were only supposed to be on an hour, and we're at 1 hour 10 minutes. I got to go work on a broken down mower.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Well, I get off here, and I may actually watch some TV for once.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months.
Well, take care, Timothy. It's always great having you. Love the conversation. And so, God love you, and have a blessed day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.